All right, welcome everybody. This is Dan Chapman, mortgage advisor, here with our podcast, and I've got my special guest, Matt Chapman from Windermere Real Estate in Bellevue, Washington. Yes, Matt and I are brothers. So welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, I'm excited to get going and talk real estate. And first off, I want to talk about, what made you want to become a realtor, Matt, and kind of tell me the story of how you got into real estate and how long ago you started.
Yeah. Well, I come from a nonprofit world. I was working for a nonprofit for a number of years and loved my job, but we were really connected with neighborhoods and we really cared about different neighborhoods. And meanwhile, while I had that job, my mother-in-law was working for Windermere, and she'd been a Windermere realtor for over 20 years. And I was always just drawn to what she did. And I always asked lots of questions, and I just thought, what a great way to actually care about neighborhoods by getting into people's homes and by helping them find a home. And so that was really one of the main things what drew me to real estate. One is my love for neighborhoods, and then just watching my mother-in-law from afar find success in real estate. And she actually became my mentor and it really helped propel me to the success that I've found in my career.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've known her for a long time and she's done really well. So she's been a great mentor to you. And so let's talk about kind of how you got your start and when you started.
Yeah. Well, so I started in 2016, and I just remember meeting with different realtors that found success in the industry, and just asking them what they did, what their process was. And, the whole working by referral method was kind of across the board was what these realtors were doing. And they were finding different ways to really provide their clients with a ton of just good advice, and they had a good reputation. They left their clients kind of just in awe of their service, and they created kind of raving fans that would just generate all these referrals. And so I got my start in 2016 and kicked off my career in real estate. And the first year I only closed 4 transactions. So
it's tough that first year, man. I remember my first year 21 years ago. Really tough.
Yeah. And I remember going into my managing broker's office and just kind of wondering, like, is this the career for me? Am I going to be able to feed my family? At that time, the average price point was much lower than it is now. And 4 transactions, just not enough.
It was 4 in the first year?
4 in the first year.
And what about year 2?
Year 2, I did 12 transactions. So
3 times is better. That's good.
Yep. And that's where I became really grateful that I stuck it out, because that whole working by referral method started to pay off, and people started.
Brian Buffini School of Business, right?
That's right, Brian Buffini. Yeah. So I love that guy.
He's been around a while. I went to one of his seminars when I first got going too. So he's really good. So if you mentor, good mentorship, good quality company like Windermere, it seems like the Windermere agents, most of them, including yourself that I work with, are all really finely tuned in their business and very successful. And everybody tends to have their little niche and do things a little differently.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So I just kept on asking lots of questions to my mentors, and finding ways to fine tune my business to go. The hardest, there's so much to learn in those early years. You have to learn real estate transactions, how to write up contracts. There's so many classes you can take. Actually, the information I find can be really overwhelming of what you can learn and all the possibilities. And then there's the market. Then there's neighborhoods, and then there's, home prices. How do you do market evaluations? And the list goes on. But on top of all of that, the hardest part I found, and most people don't talk about, is actually getting the business. And that's, I think,
Yep.
really the way that you learn is by getting the business. So
Yeah, getting the business is definitely the hardest part. There are tons of things to learn as a real estate agent and a loan officer, and you're constantly learning. But number one is like, how do you bring in that business? So obviously after year two, you had I think year three might have been a breakout year for you.
yeah, year three was a breakout year. I did 24 transactions that year. And just
So two a
super
month. You
grateful.
do two a month as a realtor, and you're doing really well.
Yeah. So 24 the third year, and then the fourth year I did right around 30 transactions the fourth year, and then
Yeah.
it's been up from there.
Yeah, and the values have kept going up, so your volume went up too,
Yeah.
which is nice. So the other question I had for you, and of course I know this, but the audience doesn't. So tell me about what it means to be a social real estate agent, because you brand yourself as a Seattle's social realtor. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to talk about that because it's kind of a niche and it's kind of unique.
Yeah. So, it's been such a great way to, I think there's so many realtors out there in this market. I think there's like over 10,000 in this area. And so the question I had when it came to marketing was, how do you differentiate yourself as a realtor, and how do you stand out from the pack? And I was wrestling with that question early on. I just saw so many realtors posting like articles on Facebook and Instagram, and sending out newsletter on, market stats, different home design ideas. They were sending out vendors that could possibly help their clients. I think all those things are helpful, but the point is every realtor is doing that.
Yeah,
And
it
so
kind of
how
get
do you,
lost in the shuffle there.
I think that stuff just gets lost in the noise most of the time. And so how do you really stand out from the pack? And that's where I came from, the nonprofit world. And I just realized that a lot of these nonprofits had great ideas, but it was hard to get funding. And it was also hard to find advocates for their work. And somebody that didn't work for their organization, but that was actually advocating for the good work that they were doing, and kind of more or less being a spokesperson. And so while I was wrestling with that and asking those questions, and I have kind of a marketing background just in my nonprofit work that I was doing, I had to do all that stuff myself. And I had to create the newsletters, and I had to send out postcards and try to figure out a way to get in front of people when I worked for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So I had kind of some of that marketing background, but a friend of mine in Bellingham runs a real estate firm called Two Roofs. And he was doing something really unique. And he was saying, hey, if you buy or sell a house with us, we will basically build a house for somebody in a poor country. And so it was kind of this idea, a roof for a roof. You buy or you sell, and then we're going to give somebody another roof. And that idea started to take off for him. And so I reached out to him and asked him to mentor me in this whole social real estate idea. And he coached me up on it. And so I am actually Seattle's first social realtor. There's nobody else doing it in the Seattle area. I've been doing it for 5 years now. And that's when my business actually started to take off, because I think I felt like, okay, I can be my true self, and which, it allows you to really be authentic, because I love nonprofits. I love giving back. And I can put this information in front of people about the good work the nonprofits are doing. And that in turn is going to help me stay top of mind, and people will think of me as a realtor.
For sure. For sure. I love that. Okay. So when a buyer or seller comes to you, how do you market that to them? And then what do you do at the beginning and then at the end?
Yeah. So first off, when people ask me what I do for a living, I always tell them I'm a social realtor. And so that always, kind of piques their interest. And And they always ask, what is a social realtor? And then so I get a chance to explain that to them. And essentially, a social realtor is that every home sale goes to help a person in need at no additional cost to my clients. And I partner with a variety of nonprofits in the Seattle area, the greater Seattle area. And I make a donation from my commissions, $1,000 donation for every home sale or home purchase. And then that nonprofit gives me a story of a life that's been empowered through their work or a life that's been changed. And then I give that story to my clients, and it's only their story. It's a unique story just for them of how their home sale or how their home purchase made a difference in somebody's life. And I put that story together in a hardcover book. And I also have pictures in that book. Here's the book, actually.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a nice house.
Yeah, so this is my client's house. So I put
Wow.
their picture of their house that they bought on the front.
Uh-huh.
And then I have just like a little thank you note to my
Uh-huh.
clients there.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
and it's a picture of my clients. And then I have some more pictures of their house. And then I have the story, the unique story. I don't know if you can
Uh-huh.
see that, but of the person that they helped. And so, and then in the rest of the book, there's all these other stories of people that have been helped along the way. But the point
Oh,
is, they
cool.
get this as kind of a keepsake book. And this is like significant in a lot of my clients' life because they're like, wow, we made a difference. We're making an impact because of this. And then not only that, they get to know the great organizations in the Seattle area and they
Yeah.
feel connected. And sometimes they even donate on extras throughout the year to these organizations. So.
Yeah, I just did to one of your organizations a couple of days ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Got a call from my sister-in-law. So that's great. And then another thing about that is that's like a coffee table book. So it might be sitting on their coffee table. They have clients or friends over, family over, and people pick that up and go, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I would imagine you've gotten business that way before.
Yep, I have. And I know some of my friends have told me they've gone over to my clients' houses and they've like showed them this book and just as kind of a prideful moment for them just to say, hey, we were a part of something that was bigger than just our home sale. And, I think that the thing that makes it work is, I'm not doing this necessarily as a way to get business. I'd want to be doing this anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I think when you do good things and you live authentically from who you are, business comes, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what's happened is like I'm not necessarily expecting or counting on people to refer me, but that is the result. And that's starting to happen more and more. And a lot of times it's through my nonprofit partners. Like, for example, we had a nonprofit that we support. Their board member knows about the work that I do. And she contacted me the other day and said she wants to buy. Well, that would probably never have happened if we weren't in that relationship.
Right.
And there wasn't that trust there.
Right. So that's big. And I would imagine, your number one source of business is referrals, past clients, probably.
Yeah. My number one source is referrals, and then it's my own sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Would be second. And then I do get some business from people that find me online organically and through Google.
Yeah, because you have a really good website. What's your website again?
It's ChapmanHomesHQ.com.
ChapmanHomesHQ.com for those of you listening. Check it out. So let's talk about the housing market. It's towards almost in the holiday season, 2022 here. It's changed quite a bit since the frenzy. I call it a frenzy of shark infested waters, January through maybe April. Just crazy year. I think, in my experience, I guess the next craziest year would have been, probably 12, 13 years ago when '08 hit, but I think this year's been crazier for the market as far as the swings of interest rates and what that's done to the market. What do you see happening, within the next 6 months to a year with the housing market, and in particular the Seattle housing market, Seattle, the East Side, Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond?
Hmm. Well, that's the question, right? Everybody's asking is what's happening with the market. And
Yeah.
I always tell people, let me get my crystal ball,
Yeah.
rub it, shake it. Um, but, I would say, I think along with a lot of what the experts are saying right now is that this next year in 2023, we'll probably see home prices decline in value, maybe another 5% or so. I would say 4 to 5% here on the east side, Seattle area. And then I think beyond that, I think things are looking pretty optimistic. A lot of the economists I follow, if you take the average appreciation rate, what they're predicting by 2026, is that we'll see anywhere between like a 14 to 26% appreciation by the year 2026. So if you're in the market for the long haul and you're going to be in it for the next 4 to 5 years, and I think real estate is going to treat you really well. And I also think that question really, what is the market? What's going to happen in the next year or two? It really, I think the mindset of either the buyer or the seller is really important, or the realtor on the other end. And so it really depends on who's asking the question, and what their life circumstances are and how to best advise them on whether to buy or whether to sell. Or if you're a realtor, are you really just bummed because now people aren't coming to you in droves and wanting to buy and sell, and now you actually have to work hard? And personally, for me as a realtor in this market, I'm excited for the shift, because it's an opportunity to sharpen your skills. It's an opportunity to say, okay, I've never been through a down market myself. I've just been doing real estate since 2016. I've experienced down markets as a buyer and as a seller, but as a realtor, I'm kind of looking at this and saying, okay, this is an opportunity to grow my business in a down market. I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if that's even possible. How would I go about doing that? How would I go about building my business in a way that really helps people and serves people well in the midst of this changing market?
Yeah. Well, I've done that, and it's definitely going to be harder than the last 2 years, 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
But you in this business in real estate, I see it seems like every 4 years there's going to be 1 year that's really challenging. And this year, 2022 for me was a pretty solid year. So I think next year, I think it's basically, if I'm looking at it, it's like half of this year, the second half of this year, and the first half of next year, pretty challenging.
Yeah.
But I think the market goes with the values in the market, the housing market goes with affordability. So we're seeing rates, on conventional loans in the high 6s or low 7s. And so prices have softened because of that, because the payment, on a $700,000 loan, might have been $500-600 less 3 months ago than it is now. Right. And if you look at where rates were at 3% in February, so we've gone up about 4%. So that's a huge affordability issue.
What do you see them doing? I'm curious.
I mean, interest rates, there's a big thing that's coming out November 10th, and that's the Consumer Price Index, also known as CPI. That's a really huge gauge of inflation. And the last few ones have been pretty bad. So they've risen. Like the last one was, I think the last 2 or 3 were 0.06% increase year over year. And with inflation right around that 9% mark. year over year, if you add all the months together. And so this next one, there's hope because of all the moves the Fed has made. They've gotten real aggressive the last few moves. In fact, next week, they're going to raise rates most likely 3/4 of a point, the Fed. Not mortgage rates, by the way, for those of you listening, that's the Fed funds rate, totally different thing. But that, if they do that, we're hoping that November 10th CPI report is a little tamer on the inflation end, and we'll see rates trickle down a little bit. This week was a great week for rates. Rates improved about 0.5 point today. This week, I should say, from Monday to today, they improved about 0.5%. But it's still very volatile. Like if the inflation report on November 10th is bad, we're going to see rates jump up probably 0.5%, at least. If it's tame, we might see rates go down another 0.5%. So I think there's a very good chance by early 2023 that we'll see rates in that 5 to 5.5% range.
So do you think people that are buying now and banking on refinancing in the next year or two, do you think that's a wise move for them?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's going to refinance within the next, I would say, 18 months. If I guess I'd lay some serious money on that.
Yeah.
Because I do think the market's oversold right now for mortgage-backed securities, on the bond market where they were traded. It's very oversold. So I do think that is the case, but I always advise clients, and I'm sure you do the same, make sure you can afford the payment now.
Yeah.
And you're happy with that. Okay. You're okay with that. And of course, we're not going to let them get proved if they can't afford the payment now. So,
yeah.
I mean, they can afford it. They can afford it, but it may be more than they want, but they can afford it because they're buying the house. So make sure you're not like, 100% banking on that. There's a very, very good chance it'll happen though, but we just don't know exactly when. So
that's good.
So that's about it. I think it's good to have you on the podcast, Matt. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And for those of you tuning in, Matt's information will be put on here, but his website is
ChapmanHolmesHQ.com. Also, you could find me on Instagram with that same Chapman Holmes HQ.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. We're going to wrap it up. Good talking to you.
Blessings on you.
Have a great day. Thanks.